Julius Africanus. And his writings were extant in Eusebius' time. So you see, Eusebius is cribbing. He's taking stuff from here, taking stuff there, patch and pasting. But some of the stuff he takes is really good. So here, I don't think this exists anymore. This passage he's got from Africanus. It's disappeared. They who have written more accurately respecting him say that he was the son of Antipater. Okay, that's his father. Josephus mentions him. And the latter was the son of a certain Herod of Ascalon. Ascalon is still a Jewish town on the coast. It wasn't Jewish then. It was a Greek town, and it was the center of Philistine culture back in the days of the Philistines. It was one of the 5 Philistine cities, and it's next to Gaza, just a little farther north from Gaza. And one of the ministers in the temple of Apollo he's a Greco-Arab. His father was a priest of Apollo. Well, you know, we're really in foreign ground here. And that's really extremely interesting. Then Antipater, when a boy, having been taken prisoner by some Idumeans, that's where the Idumean idea comes from, took the boy, and the father, being a poor man, was unable to ransom him. Now, I don't know if that's all true or what's true there, but some new information. Thus, growing up in their practices, he was afterwards befriended by Hyrcanus, the one brother who had fought with his other brother at the time of Pompey, when Hyrcanus used Herod's father to bring in the Romans. So Herod's father, Antipater, had a lot of connections all around. He had connections with the Greeks on the coastline. He made connections with the Jewish high priest, Hyrcanus, who was the head of the government at that time. He had connections in Idumea. Idumea is the Edomite country across Jordan. By the way, you know why it's called Idumea? Edom in Hebrew is what word, you know? Red. If you look at the mountains standing on the Israel-Palestinian side of the Jordan River, and you look across to the Jordan, or if you're down by the Dead Sea, by the Gulf of Sinai, of Eilat, or whatever you want to call it, Aqaba, and you look at the mountains, they're red. It's a light pattern that you sometimes get. You probably see it sometimes in deserts like Arizona and New Mexico and Nevada. The way the light hits them, for some reason, and the mineral in them, they look red. The mountains on your side look brown. And that whole area was always called red, and that's where the Red Sea got its name from. The Red Sea is called red because of the red mountains that go along the edge of it. I've come up the Red Sea, and I can tell you they're red. And they look red, and they reflect red in the blue of the Red Sea. And that whole area, now, in the Bible, that becomes a mythological story. How many know who the father of the Edomites was? Esau. And Esau is said to be, when he comes out of the womb, he's whose brother? Isaac's brother. And what is he? Red and hairy. And then he gives, his children are called the red people because he was red and hairy when he came. No, it's not why. That's just a storyteller's attempt to interpret his name. He's the father of the Edomites, therefore he was red, and the Edomites are red. They're not red skins. They come from the area called red. Now he's hairy. You know why he's hairy? Because the mountain in this place that was the land of the Edomites, where they hung out, was called Mount Seir. And Seir in Hebrew means hair. So they hung out in the hair, and they hung out in red, and therefore Esau is red and hairy when he's born. That's true. It's dead true. And you just have to know a little bit about these places, and all these traditions open up to you. Now to the simple person, Jew, Christian, whoever. If I go to a rabbi, it's no different than a Christian. Everyone is saying on this. I say, why was Esau red and hairy? Oh, he was red and hairy when he came out of his mother's womb. They just accept the story at face value. One of the things about well-meaning and decent, they're all good people. There's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. But they have one flaw. They mistake literature for history. Muhammad is the same. He's not much different. You know, it's a huge flaw. They take the stories of the poets, the storytellers, the legend reciters, everything as true history, when in fact it's just literature still. And literature may be history, it may not be. And that's, if you want to know what the flaw of almost all these people are, in terms of are trying to get some information out of them, they don't understand it through religion and history. I know it's simple. But this goes for the Old Testament story, which I just said. Now, when I tell you Esau was red and hairy, you know that he damn well wasn't red and hairy, probably. He may have been. But that the storyteller just made him look that way so they could explain his name in terms of the name of his descendants, who they knew lived in the red place, that the capital of which had the same name as the Hebrew word for hair. And that's how they interpret it. Saying how Moses is called Moses because they pulled him out of the river. It's nonsense. He wasn't called Moses because they pulled him out of the river. Because the Pharaoh's daughter didn't know Hebrew. And Moshe is a Hebrew word, meaning to pull. That's not why she called him that. She names him. It's nonsense. And I don't want to go any deeper than that. But it's not just it's all stories of that kind should be looked at and they can be helpful. All right, let's go on. At the end of this chapter, it says, "Of this you have evidence in Josephus, who shows that when Herod was appointed king by the Romans," so he got his kingship from the Romans, "he no longer nominated the chief priest from the ancient lineage, but conferred the honor about certain obscure priests. Of course, similar to that of Herod, the appointment of the high priest was pursued by his son Archelaus in the next generation, until the Romans removed him at the time of the tax revolt and put their own governors in control. And next the Romans, who after him took the government of the Jews in their own hands. This same Josephus shows that Herod was the first that locked up the sacred vestments of the high priest, and having secured it under his private seal, no longer let the priest use these sacred vestments except with his permission." You've got the whole thing right there. You now understand who the high priests are in the Gospels, why they are behaving the way they are behaving, who appointed them, where they came from. So who are they? Who controls them? The Herodians and then the Roman governors. And how did this first start? With Herod, who mistrusted the ancient priesthood. And what are scroll documents like the Gospel, like the Dead Sea Scrolls trying to do? Revive the ancient priesthood, but make it a more righteous one. And that's why Jesus presented as Melchizedek priest, high priest, and king at the same time. We'll get into that as we go. But see, that's why this kind of thing, Eusebius is really helpful. He calls, I don't particularly like him, but he calls important stuff. We could read Josephus and miss this. But he calls it and gives it to us because it's very important to know that Herod came in basically in what date? 37 BC. From 37 BC on, the establishment changed. Not only did he do that, he killed all the people of the previous Sanhedrin. He doesn't mention that. Anyway, he stopped giving them the high priesthood. So who are the Sadducees in the New Testament? Are they the ancient priests? Like, no. There's some new starts. That's why they're not popular among the people. The Maccabees were the last high priest line. Herod and his father exterminated them. And the Roman governors continued that. And those he didn't exterminate, he married and bred with. So he imposed his own children on them. But he was a kind of Saddam Hussein, as I told you. Now, why couldn't he be high priest? Because he wasn't of Jewish blood and he wasn't of priestly background. Therefore, he had to get some stooge priests, some stooge high priests, some puppet priests that he controlled totally. Now, this is the new Sadducee class in the New Testament. And it didn't take us long to analyze that. It's just a few little steps, but I can assure you, you ask 100 people who you know about that, who are the Sadducees in the New Testament, and you won't probably get one right answer. Okay, we're going to speed up from now on. I've done enough, I said it last time, but I am going to speed up. We are moving along. Please make me start with chapter 7. Don't let me go back again. And then we'll really speed up. We're going to go as far in this book as the execution of James, which is in the 2nd chapter. And then we're going to, I would recommend you reading up to about page 160, chapter 23 of the 2nd book. I don't think you have to read further than that.